Yes, fantastic. And we say we are ready to be able to help with this connection, because it is not a coincidence that this gentleman has come asking for his turn. So we know all the connections that need to be made, and we are ready on our side.
Hmm. Well, thank you. We would like to speak with Abraham Lincoln
Mhm.
today.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. And he is here. His spiritual team is here. The conscious mind of the man is present as well. But we understand that sometimes you like and would prefer to talk to the subconscious and the higher self of the beings who have played those roles, of those icons in your history. So feel free to direct your questions to either his consciousness or his subconscious as you see and feel fit.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that. That's quite helpful. Um, well, I offer you my greetings, Mr. Lincoln, or should I say President Lincoln? Um, and could we just begin, please, with your life mission and purpose here as president?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you for calling me in, and my subconscious and higher self say thank you very much for noticing that they were very keen to get their message out, and the role and significance and importance that I had to play for humanity. My life experience was to suffer great losses in all aspects, and lose a lot of people that I loved dearly. Not just my family, and my closest, but my friends, my colleagues, co-workers as such. And so I had to see the hardships of living, and challenges and struggling is not reserved just for certain genders or races or demographics, financially or educationally. So I had to experience profound loss and grief, and to be able to struggle with my my beliefs, my fundamental beliefs in religion. I was aware of the Bible. I was aware of the morals and the stories that were being dedicated, depicted in these books. But for me to match that an almighty, powerful one being would see such cruelty happening to humanity just did not resonate with me. I couldn't settle that in my mind that we had to experience suffering, and that was all purposeful for God, from God. That just did not seem fair. It did not just seem just. And when I profoundly experienced my first biggest loss of my mother, I hated God um, deeply. And my pain as a young boy never really was addressed and dealt with. And so I had distrust. I had distrust that there was just one man, one being that was responsible for all, because it did not make sense. And so I had profound compassion to all. And so I had to, I saw humans as humans. Um, I saw equality in all, and I could feel the pain of all, because I was merely just that broken boy. My inner child was really not that far away from my adult mind. Not that I behaved immaturely, but because I knew the profound challenges of losing dear ones, role models in your life, and I was never able to get a direct role model back. The the position of losing my mother and my reactions to that loss were always with me. They were always with me. And so I needed to experience that to have a profound compassion for others. And I needed to know what the worth of each human's life was. And each human has people who profoundly love them, regardless of whether they know it or not, regardless of whether they feel it or not. We are all deserving of unconditional love to each other. And it is not a luxury for some or for few. It should be given to all. Everyone deserves to feel free from suffering. This is my mindset when I was a man, and I could not see or understand the bigger picture, which was now from the perspective of being in the afterlife, that people were needing to experience suffering for their own life contracts. So it was very purposeful, but when I did not have the information, it was almost maddening. It was almost like a punishment to live and to struggle so profoundly. There was no reason that humanity needed to suffer. We could just love each other and be respectful of each other and be of service to everyone. This is what seemed to be the most common sense basics that I just struggled with for so long, for so hard. And I just couldn't understand why people couldn't see each other as an extension of selves. If you are not loving someone, you are blocking yourself from that connection. You're not just doing that person a disservice, you're doing yourself that disservice. Because when you start shutting down your love, when you're starting to put blocks up, when you're hiding from connections of others, you're hiding from yourself, you're hiding from your true divinity.
Yes. What, thank you. It's the time that you lived in, of course, was a time of great division among people, as there's some similarities to what we're experiencing now in my time frame. Um, and your words, of course, apply as well as to your time as they do to mine. Um, would you speak some to the divisions that we are experiencing now in regard, um, from your own perspective, from your time?
Mm-hmm. Yes. There is still a division of the belief system that one country is better than another. The belief system that one gender may be stronger or weaker than another. The belief systems that one race is different and better or worse from each other. There's still that division. And when you are still comparing others and with judgment or with inferiority complexes, you are still not embracing the one race. Humanity is one essence, one super collective consciousness. And when there is any separation, segregations, it is dividing that. And as soon as you start dividing this one consciousness, you're breaking it and weakening it down. And humanity needs to feel like they can stand beside their brothers and sisters all together, holding hands, feeling the love and support of each other, not having to have the same belief systems, being mature enough to understand and accept other people see things differently. You may see the shade of a blue quite differently from someone else. Does that mean that you should go to war? Does that mean you should judge and hate your fellow man because of the color that they may see in the sky? There is nonsense there. There is nothing that can justify hatred or disrespect of other people's opinions. You're all very valid. Your voices all matter. But when you start coming from ego, when you start coming from a place where you must be better, then arrogance and ignorance comes in and leads you and makes you react in that way. So there is so much. There is so much that is still innately, humanely, human characteristics that are just repeating in cyclical ways, and these cycles do not serve. You should be all aware and noticing that segregation and separation weakens the pack, and your humanity is a pack that can be profoundly strengthened when you all feel part of this. And this is purposeful, your experience with your virus, in quotation marks, the virus, because the world is experiencing it in real time together. And you need to start feeling like you have one thing that you are having in commonality, because you all want to compare each other so individually. It's because you don't have profound love of self. You're afraid, you're judging yourself, you're comparing yourself to others, you're wanting to copy others but yet still be unique. And so there is this continual battle of your common sense and your self-worth and your level of empowerment. It is human nature, but it is being exaggerated with extra competition and placements in the world. You must have more likes, you must have the latest technology, you must have everything that influencers are encouraging you directly and indirectly to have. And you feel that you're on a back foot if you don't have the latest something, or if you're not aware of the latest trend.
Well, I'd like to ask you some more questions about your background regarding your ancestors. There seems to be some question as to who your maternal grandfather was, some kind of mystery surrounding that. Could you enlighten us?
I don't see. I don't see the figure. I see that I didn't have much to do with my grandparents. It doesn't seem that they were living in the same area that we were at. There was disconnect there.
Yes, I believe you all did move a bit. There's some rumors that there may be a relationship to the Rothschild in your family tree. Can you tell me anything about that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. So if you are a part of a certain family, you still have free will to behave and to make your own choices. And we all have connections and families where we don't always agree. But as I was mentioning earlier, we can still stand side by side and support each other and still appreciate and respect each other without having to fall victim to other people's belief systems.
You are, as president, in this time frame, you're held in very high regard. It's as if you, while I know there was a lot of controversy, people seem to regard you as, just this man of great integrity and um, which is quite refreshing in this day and age. And I'm curious as to, I know there were multiple challenges, and I believe there were challenges in regard to your wife, Mary Todd, um, and in the family, and um, but I'm wanting to know more about who influenced you in your life. Uh, how did you get this broader vision for humanity?
Hmm. It was my own personal experiences. I inspired myself because I kept to myself more. I knew I wanted to learn more. I was more curious, and I inspired myself to empower myself to grow and to learn as much as I could. I did not accept being held back. I did not feel that I should be peer pressured into doing the things that others expected and assumed of me. I had a thirst for knowledge. I had a thirst for wisdom. I wanted to honor myself in that thirst. And so I wanted to read as much as I could to be able to understand many different concepts in many different parts of history. So I inspired, well, I say, well, this must sound so ego based of me to say I inspired myself, but I needed to believe in myself that I could afford to go off the beaten track and do something that was quite different from what I was being expected to do. Every person's voice and every person who has written down in history that I could find all had value. And when you profoundly respect everyone's opinions and not feel pushed or swayed into one direction or another, it was just more thought, more food for thought and for contemplation. And so I needed to hear many people's conversations and many people's experiences to be able to form my own. And so I did not have as such favorites truly, because everyone has very important insight and wisdom and perspective to be able to add into what I was seeking, which was universal truth and wisdom.
Hmm, nice. Um, okay. Well, I'm I am curious about your relationship with Mary Todd. Could you speak some about that?
Mhm. Well, I did have insecurities that people that I loved would leave me. So sometimes I was um, distant and aloof, and other times I was needy and had insecurities that were on my shoulder, on my sleeve. Uh, so I was stepping into trusting and experiencing a new love, and she intrigued me. She had an open mindset too, and I liked the way she did not seem to, on the surface, judge others. She could see and communicate with people for being people. And I like that about her because many were not so open minded and open hearted.
Mm, nice. Okay. Um, can I speak with your subconscious, please?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and we want to add in here that there is purpose for him being assassinated, the approach of him and his life and how he respected all and wanted to stand up for all got him killed. And so, in the subconscious, the conscious mind of many, which is very, people are afraid constantly to speak up for themselves and to not be forced into peer pressure and manipulation. He was a freedom thinker. He was for freedom. And so when he wanted to be using his platform to be able to spread this and share this and enforce this, this was going against other people's agenda. And so he was killed for this. And this is partly why the dark agenda like to use his name, to be able to remind people, oh, if you speak your truth and speak your mind, it will be the death of you. And so we say that this is not how he wanted to have this viewed as him. He wanted to inspire. And he wants to say to you now that on his death, he does not regret speaking, and he would feel that people have missed the point. If you're so afraid to speak your truth because of death, then you're afraid of living, and you're afraid of being honest with integrity and truth on your side. You must always speak the truth. You must always see humanity and be very compassionate and considerate, and to be a part of strengthening humanity rather than breaking it down. And so there is much there that you can look at and to see from a new perspective, as we have just pointed out to you.
Thank you. Yes. I'm curious as to whether the reason why he did get assassinated, if it had anything to do with the changing of the government from a republic to a corporation.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and go ahead.
He was not being manipulated. He was refusing to be bought out. He was a man of financial comfort through marriages and through his own working abilities. So he was not going to sell out his country, and he was not going to sell out his morals and ethics. The banking system was something he wanted to have to make freedom for Americans. He wanted to not only remove slavery and free and liberate individuals, he wanted to remove the financial slavery that your country, as you are in America, he wanted to liberate the financial system. And so many reasons he was targeted for this. Your question to us was about Republicans and
no, not Republicans, but the Republic was
right.
what the original government was.
Mm.
And I believe he was proposing legislation or considering it to change the government from a republic to what essentially was a corporation.
Mm. Well, it was supposed to liberate financial freedom for America, to be getting away from other countries that were using the money for interest-based loans. There was lots that was going on, and he was trying to steer it into a positive, but he was working with people who had already sold their morals and wanted to, with not great morals for their country or for themselves even, they were brought out, and they were applying peer pressure onto him to sell out. And this is something he would never have agreed to.
Okay, well, that's some good insight. Because I've heard some information, and I believe from what you're telling me that this information is unfounded. But was the person who assassinated President Lincoln known to him, as in someone really close to him, or was it someone he did not know?
It was not just a random lone gunman. It was someone who did know him, and he was killed because he was not being manipulated. He was not able to be manipulated. What he wanted for America was to be able to be free in all senses and to be able to have empowerment of individual and financial. And he wanted to cut ties from old systems that did not work. And so, whatever he was signing himself up for and endorsing, it was because he believed it was the most purest. And if he was not aware of all of the hidden fractions that was going to be taken on, his integrity and his agenda was pure. But of course, it's not just one company that he's trying to build, or he's not trying to change. Sorry, what he was trying and had hopes for was everyone else had the same ethics and compassion for humanity as he did. And unfortunately, one man cannot oversee every single person's agenda and what is being truly planned and for humanity. And so while he was hoping that he was around like-minded gentlemen to have gentlemen's agreements to be able to be honorable, he did not foresee or predict that there were people who were trying to manipulate him, and then eventually organized him to be out of the picture so new people could come in and to be able to line their own pockets. And so he had pure integrity, and whatever mud has been thrown on him in his name is mud that has been thrown by the other people who are wanting to distract their own behavior onto someone else other than them.
Okay, thank you for that. Would you like to give us a message as in speaking to all of humanity from your perspective now, from where you are?
Dying for your beliefs, to have profound passion and honor and humanity's best interests at heart, is an honorable death. And my death, because I did not sell myself out and I did not sell my country out, from my perspective, it was a cause that I am fine to have continued on. And I would have continued on. I would have tried my best to have foreseen dodgy deals, to have foreseen other people's bad agendas. And if this has not been my legacy, if people are saying that I did sell out, I would like to let you know I didn't. I trusted many, and I hope that my inspiration and my approach to life would have been inspiration to all. There is no true death. You are merely just exiting one scene and one drama and one play and moving on to the next. And so you get to choose how you live each life using your free will. And if you're too scared to stand up for your truth, if you're too scared to stand up for freedom, if you're too scared to stand up for others who need your support and help, then what kind of life are you living? You're also very powerful. You're also very intuitive. You know morally right and wrong. You know when your ego is playing. You know when your reactions are coming from your heart versus your mind, versus your triggers and traumas from past. Everything that you have had to experience in this lifetime is preparing you for your future and for your today. Do not forget everything you have overcome, everything you have learned and experienced. It is not God punishing you for any of that. It is simply your life contracts. And if I had understood this more as a man, I would have been able to heal a lot and be able to have been at ease more. I was afraid of losing more people that were close to me. I did have connections to the other realms without really understanding it as such. I didn't really know what it was, but I did know that my intuition about the spiritual realms and religion I was still needing and seeking information. But I did not, well, I still had resistance and an attitude towards a God. I still was not fully closed off to consider that there was something bigger than us. And I wanted people to consider this because it gave me great comfort while I was still confused and challenged about what life all meant and why we must suffer. There is so much that my life had offered me and experiences, and I appreciated and enjoyed my life upon reflection when I did my life review. It is amazing how one person who can be so profoundly hurt can still inspire and encourage others. My fundamental drive was to never allow anyone to feel the pain that I did when I lost people that I loved. And I never wanted to experience one day of sadness as profoundly as I did. And I was trying to run away from my inner sadness. I was distracting myself by trying to elevate and support and liberate others. And it was a noble cause, but I probably should have spent more time healing my inner self because I was reacting a lot to the pain that I could not quite support and comfort and nourish within myself. That pain ate into me physically and emotionally. And this is part of my physical problems that I had in my body, is that I couldn't heal myself emotionally. So I ate my body away from the emotions. The emotions I felt were eating my body away, I should say. It is interesting what is happening to humanity at this moment, and in some regards, it is repeating itself. I have to say that the approach that the people in my era lived and how they approached life seemed more civilized in some regards because there was still decency, even though there was still manipulation and corruption. It still had almost a gentleman's approach to it. And now there is so much freedom of expression. Uh, there is a lack of uh, how do I even put this into words without sounding judgmental? And I'm not trying to offend, but it's quite different how people are able to be so bold and brash with their language and with their approaches and behaviors, how people choose to represent themselves on social media, for example, is a very interesting and very bold approach to life. And yet, there is so much being said on social media, but not much is also being said. It is very interesting. I understand that you're being heavily censorship. There's a lot of censorship, and the people who are trying to get their messages out are being having the censorship issues. But remembering that I was killed for my open expression, and not that many people who are listening, if any, will ever have their lives taken away from them because they are sharing their idealisms of freedom of speech, freedom of humanity's fear of being controlled, manipulated, and in fear. You are so powerful with your words, and you all can reach so many people, and so instantly. It is quite remarkable how powerful you are, and yet so many people choose not to use it in fear that their lives will be taken from them, and that is simply not the case. While there is censorship, there are so many ways to express yourselves.
Mm. Well, you're still known here in the States as Honest Abe,
Mm.
which is quite remarkable achievement in this day and age. And
People say that they love honesty, but yet they don't in the same regard. They don't want to have to be told that they have inner work. They don't want to be told they have a big ego. They don't want the truth to be told about them. It is a hard pill to swallow when there are many people that are still in denial of how they are using their lives and what are they filling their lives up with and distracting themselves with. I understand that this vehicle has literally no clue who I am or what I represent for my country and for the world, because she is completely clueless. I want to say ignorant, because she has no sense of history, and that is fine. There's no judgment, but my approach was to speak my truth without hostility, without having to fight, without having to confront. I merely spoke my common sense and my integrity and my hopes for the future. And this made people stop and think. And I have been listening to many of these conversations because many of us are curious how you're being educated with our side of history. So this is why I wanted to get your attention to be able to have this conversation with you today, because my words are still my truth. And I understand that history gets changed by the authors and writers of the history. And it is curious what people are assuming happened. Unfortunately, the truth is usually used to manipulate because it's created truth. And there is so much that happens behind the scenes in reality.
Well, I really appreciate your message today, and it's restored my my sense about who you were, and because I was quite displeased to hear some rumors about you. Of course, everything today, seems to have mud thrown at it. So it's a bit challenging to discern what's true and what isn't. And
yes, and of course, if I had been an ordinary man, my life and purpose and my wisdom and approach to how to be an honest man would have gone unnoticed in history. But because of my position as being the president of the United States of America, people have to still take notice of who I was and my approach. Of course, once you become a martyr, once you become assassinated, people want to have more intrigue in your life. And so it was, it has been said, but of course, everyone's account of blue is always different. And I wanted to refer back to my previous statement about how people can see the same sky and be able to assume you're seeing the same blue, but really my tone range of color and someone else's tonal range of color may be completely different, and yet we're still seeing and experiencing the same thing. And it is not to compare and make sure that we're exactly in alignment. It is about appreciating what individual people are experiencing at that time, because it's purposeful for me to see my shade of blue and someone else to see a difference. Would we ever even know that we are seeing the colors quite differently? Potentially not. But is there a point? Is there a purpose? Is there, just because I'm seeing it one way and someone else potentially could be seeing it another way, does it make either of our positions and perceptions wrong? No, it is two completely different perspectives that are valid to each other. So I would like to say that because of my heartbreak and because of my experiencing so many deaths in my life, that changed my approach and perception of people and the valid essence and special gift that each life has to offer. And that motivated me and created the person that I was. And so I would like to point out that some people in my life experience profound financial hardship. And when you profoundly get stuck in such poverty, it can change someone. And so when you are so obsessed about poverty and the lack of money, that drives you and forces you to do things to make sure that you never experience that again. And even though you may be rich, you still may have that broken inner child of being poor. And so you are so profoundly impacted by that, you could never get enough money to be able to heal that inner child who was ashamed, who may have had to go without shoes, who may have felt really bad about themselves because of their financial predicament. And so when you are judging people with money who have agendas to keep accumulating their wealth, it may be for completely different reasons than you assume. It all goes back to how you were broken as an inner child and what influenced you to be able to make you the adults and the people you are. And so when you were referring back to families, to the Rothschilds, there is someone who profoundly is part of that family who had that very thing, who suffered embarrassment so profoundly that it broke them, and they needed to always have more money and more money, but it could never quench their thirst, could never heal that broken child of embarrassment and that complete fear, the fear of not having money, even though they were completely surrounded with it, drove them to do all sorts to be able to fulfill the agenda to get as much money as possible. They were so terrified to be without money, they couldn't even enjoy the money that they had. So it is very purposeful why people react certain ways. And it's not they're not even considering or being aware that they could be taking money from others. They're completely oblivious. When it's your inner child and you're coming from a broken inner child, for whatever reason it is, you are not able to see other people's situations while you're still trying to heal the inner child. Many people, you are broken from their inner child, and they need to feed and comfort their inner child with candy, for example. There is not enough candy in the world that could feed and fill that thirst and that need for all the candy in the world. We know we use an analogy now, but there are adults that are still feeding the inner child and still treating their inner child to sweets and candy, even though they know that that is not good for their bodies today because they don't have those children's bodies with those great metabolisms and running for hours on end, but they are still reacting to try and feed their inner child. Many people use food as love, and I wasn't able to feel the love, and so I wasn't able to nourish myself with the love, and so I didn't eat very much because I wasn't able to fulfill myself with love. I was using food as love. And this is very common for many.
Mm, yes. Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation today and for your profound message. Is there anything else you would want to say before we part?
Thank you for letting me come in and clarify some of the rumors. I cannot control everyone, and I cannot control and heal all of the inner children that I was experiencing as adults. And I did my best, and I impacted humanity as I needed to. And I would like to remind everyone that your truth and honesty must be heard for yourself first. If you don't know what your truth is, if you don't know what your triggers are and what your inner child has gone through, and you're ignoring your inner work, you are not able to notice how you're reacting to others and what your reactions and how you choose to live your life. You may be completely disconnected to why you have certain behaviors, and it can all stem back to your inner child. You've all had experiences as being innocent children who have collected many experiences along the way. And these are part of your life contract. And this is purposeful. So it is time to address everything with love and compassion for self.
Thank you for this. And I'm just so pleased to have for this opportunity to speak with you. And I'm thinking, gosh, I wish you were on the scene here politically. We could certainly use some of your guidance and wisdom. So.
Well, it's about not having leaders anymore. It is about everyone being responsible and knowing that what you can individually reach in numbers through social media, for example, is much more than I could. Really. So if you all are so powerful with your integrity and your connections through social media, there is nothing stopping you from sharing your truth. It's the illusion and the belief system that you are powerless, that you can't share your own truth and honesty because you're afraid of being judged. Do you really care about what other people think of you? You are all afraid. You're all afraid to share your feelings and thoughts. And this is another form of manipulation that has been controlled and impressed on you. While you have as much freedom and more freedom than I ever really truly could have, many people are choosing not to use it.
Yes. Well, thank you for your inspirational words.
You're welcome. And so I am here. I am always here. I'm always helping humanity. And I hope that I empower someone to feel profoundly proud of their inner truth, enough so that they can share it and not be afraid.
Thank you.